Hi guys, I am Eric Ma. I'm with CoinMarketCap. I'm the community manager, and I was invited to do an interview with Nathan Kaiser of the Cardano Foundation. And today we're going to be talking about designing compliance, sanctions, and AML. So these are kind of in-depth questions. Funny, when I was first asked to do this, I thought I was being interviewed. It kind of freaked out a little bit, but thankfully I'm interviewing the expert here. So, my first question, Nathan, is what is actually going on with blockchain and crypto in Taipei and beyond?
Right. I think as this conference shows, actually a lot is going on, and it's a really lively scene. Let's talk about Taiwan first,
Sure.
and I think your heart is close to Taipei, and so is mine.
That's right. We've both lived here for quite a while. Yeah.
It's and it doesn't get boring. No, it's moving. I remember we started the Taiwan Blockchain Association. It was actually called the Taiwan Bitcoin Association because there was only Bitcoin a couple of years ago, and all the guys that you see on stage now were in a room.
Including Andrew.
Including Andrew,
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's all these guys. It's the usual suspects now.
That's right.
And everybody was starting to build something and had like ideas, and you know, and CC was there as well. And now all these years later, they're all having companies. A lot of stuff is going on, and the space has matured. No, like from the typical garage style kind of small startup, we now see like companies that are actually delivering services worldwide. So that's quite exciting. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I think I'm also starting to see a lot more people moving from other countries, developers, and living here in Taiwan and developing out of Taiwan.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is a phenomenon. One thing is clearly the elephant in the room to talk about is always China. What's happening in China and not happening.
That's right.
And I think we do see a move. There's still a lot of teams in China, but the companies, they had to move. No, that's just a fact.
Because of the government, sure.
Yeah. And then Taiwan was a sweet spot. I think it is a sweet spot.
Very welcoming of blockchain technology. We have our crypto congressman Jason Shu here, and we're trying to make Taiwan a blockchain island of Asia. You know, so that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about governments or you talk about legislators and legislation, it's also true that the Taiwan government can be awfully slow in moving forward. But in the case of crypto, arguably that was exactly what was needed, was no action. No?
Right.
And then everybody does his own thing,
That's right.
and the government doesn't interfere. And that's what we're kind of having here. It's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Right. I agree. That's awesome. So, following up with that is Taipei the future of fintech in Asia or the world?
You know, I mean, exactly. We're all laughing and they're smiling,
Yeah.
or at least they were smiling. I think there's always this sort of hope that Taiwan, you know, rides the next wave, and that's also why we're here at this conference, and you can see the vibe. Let's see. It's still an open question. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But I think you mentioned China, and what do you think the influence of China has on that?
Right, and when you say China, I would actually include Hong Kong.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think what happens is that Taiwan does not want to go the way that China has gone with regard to crypto.
Sure.
So I think it will find its own way and will not copy paste that by far. It will, if anything, go the opposite way. And when I just said I included Hong Kong is actually not that crypto friendly after all. And we're talking banking is very hard in Hong Kong.
Right.
It's actually in the crypto space, it's close to impossible.
Sure.
Well, the truth is you can still bank in Taiwan. No? So in banking, I mean, I'm getting off track here, but the financial institutions and the link to crypto is an important piece of the puzzle. And in Taiwan so far, you know, within this in the Greater China area, it's been a good spot.
Yeah, it surely has. And who would you say, though, in Asia, who would you say is the leader of blockchain in Asia?
I mean, there's by now the ecosystem is mature enough that we have a lot of players, you know, from custody to obviously exchanges. We have a lot of cards. There are now so many cards out there that do this and that, and credit and debit, and again, obviously custody cards. So I wouldn't say there's a given leader. And it's true that Binance is big as an exchange. Of course, Bitfinex is big and Bitfinex has a very clear, let's call it a Greater China kind of origin, and so that's important. I think it changes. No, it's a market that's fast moving.
But in terms of country-wise,
oh, you're talking about country.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Okay. Oh, I love it. You see that's how not staged this interview
exactly.
is. No, I love it. Yeah.
I just met this guy today. No, I'm just kidding.
and no, I think the truth is Korea is a relatively isolated market, even if it's important, and it's arguably relatively crypto friendly. You have Japan, which is very big but somewhat static. I mean, it's hard to argue otherwise.
Yeah.
It's the bigger countries are less nimble when it comes to regulations, and that's just a normal thing. It's a size thing, and I think Hong Kong has difficulties because of the closeness to China. Singapore is being very nimble, maybe arguably lacking a bit of a home market. We haven't really seen that access, sort of Singapore, Malaysia, that you've seen elsewhere or for other industries. We haven't so much seen that in crypto. So, I don't know, the jury even for the countries is still out. But Taiwan being maybe more, having more of a pain point as a country, with a banking system that, many will argue is outdated.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not going to argue. I agree with that.
So I think in Taiwan the time is right to move one step forward. Yeah.
And I think geographically, Taiwan is very close to all those. So it's very easy for people to travel here and do business here and travel to other countries, conferences, and all that.
Right.
So they definitely does have a geographical advantage when it comes to something like that. So that's great. And how about blockchain governance? So on-chain and off-chain, we need more mature solutions. What is holding the industry back?
Right, this is a bit of a hobby, that question. I mean, I planted that question to you. I do admit, no, but it's a bit of a hobby of mine, is governance. And I think my thesis is that when it comes to blockchain governance, and when I say on-chain, so that's from proof of work to proof of stake to voting systems and so on, including the votes of different stakeholders, forks, no forks, how to fork. That's the on-chain part. The off-chain part is foundations, companies, hybrids. There's so many different models, and I think what's holding the industry back, at least partially, is not so much regulation, but it's the fact that the industry is immature when it comes to governance. We're all young startups. We're all young companies. We're except you and me. There's a lot of young people. Yeah. And
hey, speak for yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And so I think we need to have more sturdy solutions on actually how to govern a company and how to govern a blockchain. And we're all kind of like groping in the dark and not doing enough research. And that's something that we try to do at Cardano, is really get the basic fundamental academic research to address these questions. How do you govern a blockchain? You can't go back to 3,000 years and the Greeks and the Romans. It gives you parts of the answers, but a lot of it still needs to be done. So let's do it.
Very good. Yeah. Let's do that. Now, crypto. Let's talk a little bit about crypto jurisdictions. This is obviously one of the main sticking points for a lot. It's how to unify an international race to the top or to the bottom, and from Malta to Wyoming, from Taipei to Zug. So, what is your take on that?
Right, my take is that flight to the bottom is not going to work out. No? So whether it's Malta or others or Cayman Islands came up, and obviously a lot of stuff was done out of the Cayman Islands in crypto.
Sure.
And I think these times are over, and the recent guidelines for the Financial Action Task Force show exactly this. It's like law is going to eventually catch up with everybody at this conference, and we've seen this happening on the national level and on an international level. So my take on it is that it's going to be a flight to the top, meaning highly regulated, and then you as a company play that game. You're able to play that game, and then you're able to say, I got the licenses necessary, I operate legally, I do the right thing, and that's what creates trust. No? Because we always talk about trust versus trustless, but what we don't need is trust. We need trust into the technology. So that's actually blockchain is not trustless, but it's trusted.
Right.
And then we need trust into the companies, into the people that govern or run these blockchains or are coding these blockchains. And so we want to be able to say that I'm going to do this and that with this and this coin or user case or blockchain and project because I trust these people because they play above the board.
Right.
Yeah, that's where you're going to put your money, your time, and your efforts.
Sure. And what suggestion to regulators would you say, like to the SEC or FATF, what kind of advice would you give them when it comes to making regulations?
There's books written about this already, and lots of disputes between lawyers and politicians and legislators and different opinions. My personal take is don't do a blockchain law. I think that's a silly idea to say like we're going to regulate everything in one law because blockchain touches in many different ways.
Sure.
But go very light and slow and and thought through after different pieces of law where blockchain has an impact.
Right.
So that can be a transfer of shares, for example. In some countries, or very typically for transfer of shares, you have a requirement for a written paper to transfer title. So all that needs to be done is actually change that single one paragraph and maybe add 1 or 2 or 3 words to allow for a transfer title, a transfer of title through a blockchain instead of a written document, right. And then you're actually, a lot of it is done. Right. Or another part is taxes. We can talk about taxes the whole day.
Yeah.
And we can talk about blockchain and taxes also the whole day.
Sure.
And maybe all that we need is, for example, a clear VAT exemption in some countries, the way that the EU has handled that early on very nicely. And I think we're still not there in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And another part is the de minimis rule, that you say that for certain blockchain transactions or token transactions, you're not taxed for something below a dollar amount of X. No, I think that's what's dearly missing in the US, for example.
I think so.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's talk about some cross-border stuff, cross-border aspects to regulation, an attempt of a comparative international analysis. So it's one of the topics that you like to talk about. You can share a little bit on that.
Right. So I think that's this choice of jurisdiction, and a lot of startups are faced with that. They're saying like, oh, my team sits in China, but I can't operate out of China, so what do I do? So what happens now is we're all talking about decentralization, and we've seen this in practice. These companies are all over the place. And now talking about the Cardano Foundation, it's clear that like we have a registered office in Zug, and there's a couple of people there, but the people are all over, and that's what's happening in this space. So as a startup or as a project or as an investor, you're faced with the question, where am I? Where is my team? Where are my founders, my investors, my token holders, and so on? Where are my contracts? And this is a game that's hard to play, and we need more people, and that includes the lawyers, of course, that actually can play that game on a cross-border basis, and not just talk about the law of a given country, but how do you fit the pieces together?
Right. Yeah. That is very tough. Yeah. My next question is on blockchain governance, an overview of early models and what is yet to work. What is your take on that? Right.
I mean, the one model that we always have to refer to, and I think we should not forget, that is Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. That is the earliest model, and the one crazy thing about Bitcoin is it works. It just works, and that's a very impressive feat. And that's also due to the governance structure, which is odd, but it turned out to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. And then you have obviously younger projects where the governance structure is not sustainable, and then they crash to zero. Nobody's pursuing them. They give up, and that's when you hear like, "Oh, we went open source," or the team left because it was the sustainability was not built in. And so it's about incentives. It's about voting rights, but it's also about justice and equity in a wide sense, that people who contribute actually also get something back. And here we can see different attempts. It's still going to shake up.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think we'll see in the long run who actually still exists, who lasts, and who's not going to be here. Identity management and privacy. very important. Can blockchain be the answer for that?
Right.
Yeah.
It's another one of my hobbies.
Yes.
What happens is when you look at our space a couple of years ago, everybody was psyched about Bitcoin, mostly because it was deemed anonymous,
Right.
and then we know it
Which
wasn't.
not.
Yeah,
Right.
which is not. Yeah.
Right.
So that one crashed pretty quickly. And the question is now, how do we deal with privacy? Because there is a clear need for privacy. You look at GDPR, you look at the California new data protection law. So I think we share an understanding, and even in China, you have that understanding that you need privacy. And the current blockchain infrastructures, or most of them, are built to not be private. And how do you play with that? And I think technology will have to go a long way, and it already did. And we're talking privacy coins, privacy platforms. We haven't seen the beginning of this yet. And we need better platforms that have the privacy built in. And that's going to come. And then again, how does the regulator deal with this?
Right.
There are a lot of open questions, but we only started this path.
Just recently. You think this year is going to be a big year for regulation?
I think not yet. I think I called this year the year of the stable coin. I said that last year to my defense, and now Libra came out.
Right.
Yeah? And so this is the year of stable coin. Next year might be the year of the privacy coin.
Okay.
And then, by then, it's going to heat up. And the year afterwards will be when the regulators really have to
Yeah, I think like right now they're doing a lot of research and more understanding consulting and trying to understand how the space is moving.
I said,
I hope.
That's right. I said I would prefer the regulators to go slow. If they go too fast, they regulate too quick, they'll kill the industry.
And that's funny because they're asking Libra and they're asking the projects on blockchain to be slow.
Right.
If both go slow, there's going to be very little progress. So let's just all go full speed ahead, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So these were the easy questions. Now we're going to ask the hard questions. So about the Asian blockchain ABS Summit, Asia Blockchain here in Taiwan. How did you feel it went?
I thought it was a full success,
Yes.
and I'm not saying that because I know Andrew,
Right.
but I thought it was a full success.
I did too.
The number of people was impressive. The speaker list was impressive. The panels, the composition.
And I like the venue. The venue is beautiful.
Worked. Yeah. It was a bit hard to find the top floor, but
was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's certain elevators and stuff.
Right. But no, I thought it really worked out.
Yes,
And you saw these sort of gatherings of people, everybody meeting. It was very intensive discussions that you can see in every corner. I loved it.
Yes.
And I still do.
The energy's great. You can really feel like the market, with it being picking up again. There's a new rejuvenated kind of energy about it, and with future Asia blockchain summits, I think this is going to be great. I don't know if next year is going to be still also in Taipei or not.
I think
so. Every year is so.
Yeah, I think we should be back next year.
I will be back.
Yeah, we'll be back. Yeah.
So great talking to you, Nathan.
Hey, same here,
Pleasure.
Eric. Thanks a lot. Yeah, all the best.
Thanks a lot, guys. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Right.